American Holocaust, some from disease, but also vast numbers from a deliberate policy aimed at wiping out the race that mainstream history books continue to pretend never happened. He knows when Heinrich Himmler called the final solution, quote, delousing, Himmler was only echoing the Pilgrim Army's rallying cry, "Nits make lice," nits being Indian babies. This was a map of Indian nations across the US. 80% of the first government's entire budget went on attacking existing Indian settlements to take their developed farmland. Settlers would most probably not have survived, writes Jennings, on their own. 95% of America's entire population was then wiped out. American Holocaust notes there is documented evidence of colonist leaders going town after town, deliberately killing all men, women, and children. Yet school...
Shalom Akim, my name's called Y'all. I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahushai, double honors to our elders and apostles who rule Great Millstone well. And Shalom to all you Akim pushing this truth with sincerity. May you brothers endure to the end. Shalom. Shalakia, excuse me. I was bringing this out because it's still that day, that hellish day of, they call it Thanksgiving, which is actually the Feast of Slaughter. They used to have a feast after they would slaughter the so-called Native American Indians. And this is a video upon that. About that. This is Genesis 49 verse, let me see. Right here. I'll start with verse 18. Genesis 49 verse 18. I have waited for thy salvation, O Yahweh. Gad, or God is how it's pronounced. A troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at last. And the word troop is talking about these cavalry troops that invaded on Gad's land, which are the Native American Indians. They overcome the Native American Indian, but at the end, Gad is going to overcome, because the so-called white man is going into captivity with all the other heathens to follow.
Text and history books remain silent. Orders came from the very top. Under the direct order of George Washington, at least 28 of 30 Seneca towns and all the towns of the Mohawk, Onondaga and Cayuga were simply obliterated. George Washington wrote, the Indian country, quote, must be destroyed. Thomas Jefferson called to, quote, pursue Indians to extermination. Nobel Peace Prize winner Theodore Roosevelt called beneficial the eradication of the native race. Senate notes genocide was official public policy. California Governor Peter Burnett in his 1851 message to the legislature.
Extermination must continue to be waged until the Indian becomes extinct.
Another governor issued the public proclamation to, quote, pursue, kill, and destroy all Indians. A witness notes the ensuing bloodbaths practically wiped out the native race.
The whites shoot them down like wolves, men, women, and children, wherever they could find them. This war of extermination against the Aborigines is tending to the final extinction of the race.
What reportedly saved the race from extinction was their use as slave labor.
This extermination policy has proved so injurious to the interests of the whites. Indian labor is indispensable.
Highly prized slaves or Indian girls as young as 3 said the Marysville appeal for fulfilling double roles of labor and of lust. Phil Lane Jr. is hereditary chief of the Hankton One First Nation. Phil, really great to see you. What facts are being airbrushed out of history?
Practices were that sometimes you don't want to speak about, and they not only wiped out most of the people, but the way they did it, the greatest loss of people at any time in history.
Cultural genocide is still being waged on surviving Indians, reports Truthout. From the start of the 20th century, children were forced into so-called Indian boarding schools, designed to, quote, kill the Indian in them.
All right, so I'm going to get this Revelation 13:9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And this is talking about this exact situation here. Because all 12 tribes of Israel has gone into slavery under these heathens. And we're still in slavery.
The According to the system's founding father, Richard Pratt, Indians are obliged to change their name to a Western one like Tom, made to dress and style their hair like whites. Indigenous Americans are also forced to adopt Christianity and...
Okay, so as you just heard, they would make them change their name, they'd change their look, and they would have to take on the ways of the Edomite. So I'm going to get that in Psalms 83. Yep, on that page, right? Let me get this. This is Psalms 83. I'll start with verse 1. Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Talking about the heathens. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. And see that it's crafty because they took away our name. They knew what they were doing when they were doing it. For they have consulted together with one I jumped to verse 4. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. And that's what you see there. See?
all other parts of Western culture. Lenore Stefan witnessed the abuse firsthand. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Can you tell us what happened?
Federal policy here was to take the Indian out of the person. They beat the language out of like my father. He grew up his whole life. His hands were kind of up. I'm
going to read this verse again just to edify what the lady is saying happened to her grandfather, which was a Gadite. Psalms 83, verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, which it shows right, the so-called white man is right at the top of the heathens.
Kind of bent. As a result, he used to talk our native language, but he never wanted me to learn. I consider myself a recovering Catholic because of, the sexual abuse that I experienced, from the Catholic Church.
Daniel Sheehan says the genocide is continuing. He's helped start the Lakota Child Rescue Project to stop the forcible removal of Indian children. Daniel, thanks a lot for coming on. Could you tell us what is happening to the children?
And what we discovered is that not only were the children being taken on an epidemic level, that it was happening on every single one of the reservations and in virtually every one of the major cities. The International Convention Against Genocide actually has a provision which expressly identifies what's going on as genocide, that the systematic undertaking on the part of the racially dominant culture in a given nation state, taking away indigenous children from their native tribes and putting them in the white culture has been identified as genocide.
Even the Supreme Court still upholds natives' second-class status to this day, writes noted legal scholar Robert Williams. He joins us now. It's really great to speak to you. Can you give us some examples?
1 out of 3 Indian women will be raped during their lifetime. In 86% of those cases, the victims report that it's a non-Indian that perpetuated the sexual assault or the rape.
All right, so I'm going to get that in the script, which is Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I have commanded this day, to observe and to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kin, and the flocks of thy sheep. So not only are your children going to be cursed, but your animals. All right? And that's just like he said. There's Gadites that are being raped, the women, the Gadite women, and also the kids. They're being taken from them. All right? So that's why it shows you that the so-called white man has that power. He can come into your house and actually take your house, man. Take your home, your kids, take you, put you away, take your wife. It don't matter, man. because they do these things, man. I got another verse, Deuteronomy 28:41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. See? And what do they put these girls in? Sex captivity. If you saw the sign, it said that she's good for labor and lust. And she was 3 years old. You know? And if you look on the news, I stay up with the local news, national news, and international news. The so-called white man, his shame of being a pedophile is being exposed. Not only is he a faggot, because they used to rape little boys when they used to invade these camps, but now is it also being exposed that he's a pedophile, meaning he gets down with the kids. You know what I mean? And as you can see, 3 years old, she's already being sold in sex slavery. So who started sex slavery, child sex trafficking? It's this fucking so-called white man. All right? And the curses are evident that the Gadite, the Native American Indian, are Israelite.
This has been traced directly to the inability of tribes to prosecute these crimes. One of the points I make in my book, Savage Anxieties, is that if you look at the history of the more civilized nations' treatments, so-called more civilized nations' treatments of indigenous peoples, it really makes you wonder who are the savages and who are the more civilized. One very famous study done found that every single treaty...
That's right, man. They called us savages, but you know who the real savage is? Is you fucking so-called white people. You're the beast. Even in the Bible, it calls you a beast.
That the United States had negotiated with tribes had in fact been breached at one time or another, or had been violated. Supreme Court said they had no property rights and therefore no rights to just compensation. And there was some horrible language in the opinion about how the court recognized that everyone knows that the savage tribes of America were conquered and the treaties were really meaningless anyway. So it's this perpetuation of these stereotypes in this case, which is still valid law in the United States. It's still a valid precedent.
And so they drink it, but it's actually hairspray.
Native Indians now have the highest rate of suicide and pandemics of cancer in the Western Hemisphere. At 44, life expectancy is lower than Afghanistan and around the same as Europe at the time of the Pilgrims. Foreign official banquet to celebrate 350 years since Pilgrims land.
That's the curses. All right? Let me get that. Let's see. Well, let me see. Oh yeah, here we go. So he was talking about disease, that they're sick with disease as a curse. It says here, Deuteronomy 28. I'm gonna start at 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no more in thy hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed away, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. Yahweh shall smite thee in thy knee, smite thee in the knees and the legs with a sore blotch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. The Yahweh shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy father have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Just like they were bringing up the Christianity too. See, that's why we know through the spirit the so-called white man is Esau, the one that the Edomites, who is the twin brother to Israel, but it goes against us as an arch enemy. But we also know who the Native American Indians are, because they're Gadites through the prophet.